Hello everyone, welcome to my Batman Arkham City, hard plus difficulty, no damage walkthrough. This is the finale of the game with the last show, and it is going to culminate in a Predator encounter involving snipers, which I'm doing right now, a boss fight against Clayface, the Joker's death, and finally the final episode of Catwoman's DLC, which I don't know why they have to place that episode right after the actual ending to Batman's arc in Batman Arkham City, but it really ruins this ending, because this is a really great ending to an Arkham game, compared to the ending of Arkham Asylum, where the last 20% of the game was utter garbage and just filled with broken sections, and badly designed combat encounters and a really underwhelming boss fight against Joker. This ending to Batman Arkham City with Batman's arc is perfect. This is a phenomenal ending, and the boss fight against Clayface is one of my favorite boss fights in the entire Arkham series, because it's an anti-free flow fight done right. Even though you're not engaging with the actual melee combat of the Batman Arkham series with Clayface, the use of gadgets, the use of your evade, and being able to do very creative things against Clayface is so fun. Clayface has a diverse arrangement of moves, and each of them feel well designed. There isn't a single move that Clayface has that feels bullshit. And compared to the likes of Poison Ivy from Batman Arkham Asylum, Clayface is a better designed fight. Poison Ivy from Batman Arkham Asylum is the worst boss in Batman Arkham Asylum. She has way too much life, and she's capable of doing moves to take advantage of the holes present within Batman Arkham Asylum's combat systems and invade systems. And then she had enemies supporting her in the second phase, which only added more to the cumbersome nature of Batman Arkham's combat when it's placed into an environment that is not suitable for this kind of anti-free flow fight. But this is none of that. Clayface is fighting you on his own, and Clayface will try to use Clayface minions against you in the second phase, but that's all you're fighting, and then you'll have to use freeze grenades on Clayface whenever he decides to fire his projectiles at you once you deplete the minion's health. And it feels well designed. Like, it's clear that Rocksteady understood what they were doing when designing Clayface's fight, and this was very close right here. So I don't know why I chose to stop right there. I think what I was trying to do was I was trying to do the dive bomb technique, but then I thought I was going to hit the building, so that's why I stopped. But I miscalculated, and I nearly got hit by those snipers, which was very dangerous. But just use the kinetic shock on those enemies when you use the dive bomb technique, and you'll knock them down, and then you'll be able to finish them off. Very simple. But now is the actual fight against Clayface. This is a really well-designed fight. And that ball phase just then, whenever he goes into the ball form, if you lure him into the explosive barrels on the corners of the room, you'll deal so much damage to Clayface. This is so well designed. And then this one right here, you've got to press the counter button to dodge these attacks right here. And right here, you just gotta dodge this slam move of his, which, even if it touches you, you'll not take any damage during the evade, because the iframes make so much sense. Like, they definitely understood their own combat systems. The developers actually comprehended their own designs when actually designing this fight. This move right here, you just gotta evade over those two slashes. And here's the ball phase again, so he's going to get hit by the explosive barrel, and he's gonna get frozen by the freeze blast. And we're going to be doing some sword action right here, which is just some cinematography, but this will conclude the first phase. So the second phase, Clayface is going to gain access to a couple of additional moves. I think the one move that might trip up the new players is the move where he spins around like crazy and he fires projectiles at you. And here's the move right now. So he's spinning. He's carrying the low phase right now, because you can see, like, the spray that is emanating from his body. It's not the actual projectiles themselves. So there's a spray effect coming out of his body. It's lower on his body. If the spray is higher on his body, like right around his waist, like right there, you see that? You see how the spray is around his waist, and now the spray is right near his legs? That's how you know which height he's favoring, and that's how you know which way you're supposed to dodge. And if he goes high, just remain crouched. If he goes low, you gotta evade over it. It's just like what happens with Solomon Grundy when he's doing his ball spin attack. You just gotta remain crouched at all times, so that you only have to worry about evading, and that you don't have to worry about crouching at the right moment, because you're crouched the entire time. It's just such a well-designed fight, and the room is perfect. The room is large enough to allow Clayface to not take advantage of the room, and for you to not be betrayed by any of the mechanics. This move right here, you gotta remain crouched at all times. Who would have thought that a passive crouch mechanic would actually be used for dodging purposes? And here I thought Resident Evil 7 was the only game to do this, but it turns out Batman Arkham City is one of the only other games that utilizes a passive crouch mechanic for dodging purposes. And when I say passive crouch mechanic, I mean a crouch mechanic that is not something like context sensitive. It's something that only exists for the purpose of getting into low spaces. I'm not talking about like in Resident Evil 6 where you aim and you tap X and you just do that very like short crouch that only lasts for about a second. That's not a passive crouch, that's an active crouch. I'm not talking about stuff like that. I'm talking about crouch mechanics that exist solely for the purpose of navigating into low environments. And this game in Resident Evil 7 just demonstrated a chance to use a passive crouch mechanic to dodge attacks, which is really cool. And here's some more sword action. So this is where Batman goes all full ninja on this guy, and he just slices this guy to bits. But it's not over yet. And by the way, if you're wondering, this is the same movie theater where Batman's parents were killed. So very interesting that they wanted this to be the final area of the game, which I suppose makes a lot of sense, given that, you know, it's probably going to add a lot more trauma to Batman's experiences with the Joker right here. I mean, not only is the death of the Joker very unsettling in Batman's eyes, and he almost feels like he misses the Joker, but it's all taking place in the Monarch Theater where his parents were murdered. And conveniently, this is right where Ra's al Ghul is performing experiments with Lazarus. Yeah, 3 impactful events all coming together in this really awesome penultimate showdown against Clayface. And here's some sword action. So these Clayface minions work exactly like the normal henchmen, and I'm going to use my quick batarang in order to build up my combo so I can do the takedown. These enemies, their attacks are very hard to read because there's no telling if they're attacking you or not. Like they're really good at being very minuscule with their attacks, where they don't really move their limbs around so much to really indicate that they're attacking, which is why I'm trying to make sure that I'm using the quick batarang in order to build up my combo. And you can see the orange health bar depleting, so when it depletes, Clayface is going to attack. And he will always fire a projectile at you, and you just gotta fire your freeze grenade at him when he's finished firing projectiles. He always does 1, 2, 3, 3. That's his pattern with the amount of projectiles he uses for each phase. So for this phase, when I deplete the orange health bar, he's going to fire 2 projectiles at me. So you're only going to be able to hit Clayface with the freeze grenades when he's finished actually using his projectiles. But again, it's a very, very simple process because these enemies work just like the henchmen. There is no anti-free flow enemies present. It's all enemies that complement the free flow combat. And I'm able to use the iframes of the free flow evade to dodge Clayface's attacks because it would be bullshit otherwise, like in Batman Arkham Asylum's case. And I'm able to do this wonderfully designed fight. Yeah, this is a fight that has both anti-free flow and free flow elements, and it's a perfect mix-up. And it was only until 2011 that Rocksteady understood the proper blend of such mentalities. They did not master this whatsoever in Batman Arkham Asylum, because the amount of combat encounters in Batman Arkham Asylum that had both free flow and anti-free flow mentalities put together, and the combat encounters just weren't well designed in the slightest, really goes to show just a complete misunderstanding of your own designs. And it's clear Rocksteady understood what the hell they were doing when designing this fight, and it's awesome. And again, this is a one-time set piece, being able to actually wield a sword as Batman and do some really amazing martial arts techniques that really demonstrate the fact that he's traversed the world and he has actually gained a lot of skills from his time traversing the world, and it's all being demonstrated right here. And this is the last blow on Clayface, so he's going to fire his projectile 3 times, and he also damages his own minions, which is interesting. But that right there is the final blow to Clayface, and all you have to do is go inside of Clayface and tear him apart from the inside in order to grab the cure. And this is where the Joker's death will actually happen. And unlike most games, this game actually does a great job at making a villain's death feel very impactful and not out of nowhere. I mean, I have a great amount of respect for Joker. Like, I just feel like the way he's just able to maintain such a positive attitude even when he's dying, it's highly admirable, I'd say. I wish I had the ability to just laugh in the face of death and actually not feel so down or depressed when feeling like I'm dying or anything, or having like a lot of this pain inside of me. And, you know, like I was exposed to COVID-19, and I really understood what it was like to experience a lot of negative emotionality. But Joker, he's still maintaining his positive attributes with his mental persona. And also, I find it very strange that Joker is somehow able to get on top of this device, and also, where is he when Batman uses his sword on this device to destroy the Lazarus Pit? That's very confusing, but whatever. Joker's ability to remain positive in the face of death is highly admirable, and I wish I had that quality. Still doesn't change the fact that he's an awful villain, but that's all I have to say about that. And this is a scene from Batman Arkham City that I really wish they followed up on properly in Batman Arkham Knight, but they didn't. Batman Arkham Knight should have been all about Batman's moral code, or at least have that be a subtle theme throughout the entirety of Batman Arkham Knight, because it's clear in this scene, in this moment right here, when he's contemplating trying to save the Joker or not, it's almost like that sense of contemplation is hinting towards him feeling disillusioned with his no-kill code policy. Like, everything he's done in his crusade against crime in Gotham was for nothing, because this cycle of killing still seems to be perpetuating, when again, it's likely due to Batman's one-dimensional perspective on how to handle crime. But then he says right here, even after everything you've done, I would have saved you. As sort of a last-minute joke when Joker is about to die in this scene, because he knows he's going to die. And yet everyone wants to say that it's Batman's fault. Like, everyone in this game-verse wants to say that it's Batman's fault, almost as if it was Batman's fault that the Joker died, when it was actually the Joker's fault. And the Joker just misinterpreted Batman's social cues into thinking that he wasn't going to give him the cure. But regardless, not focusing on that, it just really feels like this should have been a main theme in Batman Arkham Knight. It almost feels like they were setting up Batman Arkham Knight to be a story where Batman is sort of at a middle ground, where he's experiencing this lack of self-confidence in himself and his ability to handle crime with the way he's been sparing criminals. And it's almost like he's feeling disillusioned right here, and that could have been hinted throughout certain points in Batman Arkham Knight. And then when we get to the end of the game, it could have been a point where Batman actually comes to this like self-realization, and he realizes that he doesn't need to stoop to the level of anyone who thinks killing is a great idea to actually be the perfect crime fighter. But in a sense, he finds out his flaws, and he actually finds out how he could be a better hero. And Scarecrow could have likely helped with that unintentionally, and he could have easily passed on this legacy to his allies and actually ensure that Gotham remains in safer hands. And, he could have made his allies better than him. And we hear a bit of this in a Flip of the Coin DLC, where Oracle is saying that Robin could easily be better than Batman. She says this to him at certain points in the A Flip of the Coin DLC. And, it definitely ties into what I'm saying, but I don't feel like they touched upon any of the things I'm saying in Batman Arkham Knight. Batman just doesn't really feel like he undergoes any character development. This lack of self-confidence with what I've just described could have served as the first step towards achieving some character growth with Batman, but they didn't really do that in Batman Arkham Knight, and it still feels like, even though Batman conquered Joker, and he conquered Scarecrow at the end of Arkham Knight, he still feels like the same Batman who conquered those villains, not like a different person entirely. And then he just initiates the Nightfall Protocol because everyone knows who he is, and he's just doing it to protect his allies. And then we get this epilogue moment with James Gordon being the mayor, and Gotham looks exactly the same. Nothing's really changed. Crime just doesn't seem like it's changed whatsoever. And then we get this very ambiguous scene where this figure that looks like a bat is descending upon these criminals, and what is the whole point of that scene? I don't understand what the whole point of that scene is. Are we to assume someone else is masqueraded as Batman, or his influence is still like lingering in the minds of these criminals, even though they don't fear him anymore? Like the ambiguity generated by that scene, like, what is it setting up? It's almost like it's set up in a way to be some sort of cliffhanger, but it isn't followed up on in any later game, because Batman Arkham Knight is the last game in the series. So what is the whole point of that? And it's just such a lame ending, if you ask me. Whereas, like, there could have been like better ways of resolving the Arkham series entirely. Like, Batman could have sacrificed himself, but passed on his legacy, and like encouraged his allies to be something better, and to actually make Gotham City like better in its own way, like, and not be like the same city it is all the time throughout this entire cycle of killing, like before Batman was even around. But I don't feel like they touched upon those points at all, and it just feels like a very lame send-off to Batman. And there's no character development. And then the introduction of characters like Jason Todd just don't serve any purpose with complementing those themes I've just discussed. Like, they only introduced Jason Todd just to give some kind of excuse for the Arkham Knight to really complement the perceptions the Arkham Knight has and to just build fan theories and the like. But people already guessed who the Arkham Knight's identity was. And Jason Todd's introduction is just so like jarring and out of nowhere, and it's just like a jump the shark moment. And everything in the storytelling is just so heavy-handed with hinting towards Jason's identity. And like, why is Batman thinking about Jason Todd right now? I mean, it's not established very well. And it doesn't serve any purpose in actually complementing the underlying themes of Batman Arkham Knight. And it really doesn't feel like Batman Arkham Knight has a lot of underlying themes. And what I've just discussed so far, with that lack of self-confidence that was demonstrated at the ending of Batman Arkham City, it could have easily been followed up on in Batman Arkham Knight, but they just settled with a very half-assed story for Batman Arkham Knight that doesn't feel so satisfactory as an ending. And the only part of it that's kind of satisfactory is the conquering of Joker and Batman's sacrifice. But like I said, they could have been so much better in their implementation if they actually considered a lot of the themes I was actually discussing in this video, but they didn't. And then the DLCs of Batman Arkham Knight don't exactly do much when it comes to refining the story even more. They just feel like one-off pieces of content that just feel like individual stories that take place after the events of Batman Arkham Knight, and they don't contribute to anything. There's really like nothing they're demonstrating. It's just Batman's allies rounding up villains, and that's it. That's literally like all they're doing. It's just satisfying that one superficial statement and nothing else. So like, what's the whole point of those DLCs? And it's just, Gotham looks exactly the same. They're still rounding up the villains as usual. Like, there's no growth at all. I mean, like, what is this? Like, why are they favoring this kind of option with the story in Batman Arkham Knight? It could have been so much better, but they just didn't follow up with the themes I just established, and that's disappointing. And it really felt like it with the ending of Batman Arkham City when Batman is contemplating whether to save the Joker or not. And he was going to, but then Joker stopped him at the end. And it really felt like Joker got the last laugh. But then that whole moment of contemplation on Batman's part, where it's almost like he's disillusioned with his moral code, could have been followed up on easily in Batman Arkham Knight, but they didn't do it. And that's all I really have to say on that. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on the ending of Batman Arkham Knight, but I personally didn't like it. Like, the first time I got the ending of Batman Arkham Knight, it was exciting, but then when I look at it as a whole, it has a lot of flaws to it, and it's really why I would consider Batman Arkham Knight to be my least favorite of the Arkham games, and it's just so, like, unsatisfying in its conclusion. That's all I have to say about that. But right now we're doing Catwoman's episode, which again, why is it taking place after the ending of Batman Arkham City? It's just so pace-breaking, if you ask me. It's really bad, and it's just uninspired and uninteresting, and we're dealing with more of a Catwoman shitty combat. And then we have a Predator encounter with Two-Face at the end of this DLC, and it's so simple to do. And there's no challenge to it whatsoever, and like, the game kind of forces you to handle it in one specific way, because handling it any other way is going to present with problems. And that's definitely one of the main factors to Catwoman's DLC being utter garbage. And Batman Arkham City doesn't serve any purpose for the story. Her combat and Predator encounters are shit, and she's just a bad character. That's all I have to say about that. And we've done this combat encounter, which I had to use my bolas on a lot because Catwoman is so slow. I mean, I still don't understand why we're wasting time with this. I don't understand why they force you to do this when you unlock Catwoman's DLCs, and why it's placed right here, I don't know. Because it breaks the pacing of the game. Like, that was such a fulfilling ending, and then you want to ruin it with this. That doesn't even feel like it's satisfying anything. It's just an individual story, not contributing to the ending of Batman Arkham City. Like, what's the point of this? Like, what was Rocksteady thinking when designing Catwoman's DLC? It's so bad in this game. I really hate it. But we're making our way over the Two-Face in a moment. We just have a couple of small skirmishes with the enemies right over here. And I had to restart this encounter once because I accidentally detonated a mine thinking I could get past it, but I underestimated just how much range the mines have on this game. But the way you want to handle Two-Face is very simple. You just got to take out the enemies in a certain order with your silent takedowns, and then you just need to do a ledge grab on Two-Face, and he doesn't get knocked out after one stealth attack. which is just a cheap artificial handicap for him to somehow portray him as the villain in this case. Like, just because he's a supervillain doesn't mean he shouldn't be able to be instantly knocked out by a silent takedown. I mean, they fixed this in Batman Arkham Knight with his side mission. When you actually fight Two-Face in that Predator encounter, you do a silent takedown on Two-Face and he goes down instantly. You do a silent takedown on Two-Face right here and he's still up and yelling at you. Like, why? Why have they done it like this? And for the Harley Quinn's Revenge DLC, they reused this exact same format where they have a bunch of enemies, and then they have the boss figure right here, and the boss figure in this case would be Harley Quinn, but it's just the same format, and then if you take too long to take down Two-Face, enemies will spawn in, but with the method I'm going to demonstrate right here, you don't have to worry about that because you'll finish off Two-Face before the enemies even have a chance to get you. But you need to climb up on this gargoyle to avoid the mine right over there. Drop down, and then you just need to do the silent takedown on this guy, and then you need to get back down right over there so that you can do the ledge grab on Two-Face. And when you do it down there, the enemies will not have enough time to actually get to you before you knock out Two-Face. So what you need to do right here is you need to stand on top of this railing right over here where the staircase is, because the prompt for climbing up doesn't appear until you step right over here. So I'm going to stand right here, and I'll be able to magically climb up for whatever reason. And I'm going to grab Two-Face, he's the one with the grenade launcher. And we're going to finish him up by just doing nothing but strike animations. Don't waste time with beatdown animations. They take too long to do, and they do the same amount of damage as doing this. And once you've done this, that's the end of Two-Face's boss fight. And that is the end of my Batman Arkham City, hard plus difficulty, no damage walkthrough. Stay tuned for Harley Quinn's Revenge, where I do the exact same restrictions. Thank you all for watching, and you take care now.